How's it going, guys? My name is Frank here and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing our monthly analysis for the month of September. Now, yes, we missed August, and yes, we are a few days late to September, but better late than never. I have been quite busy the last couple of months, and that could probably tell by my last upload over a month ago. So thank you guys to the people that are still here. Very patient of you guys, of course. And if you are new to the channel, remember to hit that subscribe button. We do a variety of different crypto videos, analysis, exchange reviews, whole bunch of different things. So if you think that interests you, feel free to hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment any questions that you have down below. But let's jump straight into our monthly analysis. Now, of course, as I said, we did miss out on August, but as we've been saying now for quite a while, we are likely just in a bit of a what we call the pre-halving churn, essentially. So all it is, right, is that what we see time and time again, we'll get this onto logarithmic so we can see it, but pretty well just before the halving we do tend to see a bit of a pullback that does last some period of time. We see it time and time again, 5 months from the top to the eventual breakout, 6 months from the top to the eventual breakout, 17 months from the top to the eventual breakout. And yes, that had COVID, so maybe that made things a little bit worse. And then of course where we are right now, which we're currently at 6 months. So as we said, we see a high come in pre-halving, and then that takes quite a long time to eventually get broken. And we did see a high come in March, as you can see, and that was before the halving. And then since then, we have not been able to push up any higher. And in that meantime as well, price has just, really stagnated and really done nothing. The other thing that we are looking at is our 4-year cycle. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward, right? One big green year, one big red year, 2 years essentially across in what we're calling the accumulation stage from the prior all-time high to the eventual breakout, and then rinse and repeat. One big green year, one down year, 2 years across, one big green year, one down year, 2 years across. And what we were saying right before the halving was we're probably overextended, right? According to our 4-year cycle, the eventual breakout coming, October, November, December, sometime. Obviously, that's a long time period, 3 months. But we're sort of talking in that range, right? That the eventual breakout of the all-time high will come. Then, of course, we did actually break the all-time high a bit early, but things are never the exact same. What's the saying? They often rhyme, but they don't repeat. So you can see this is sort of rhyming at the moment, and we did have this sort of theory that perhaps our pre-halving churn would come in, and then that would slow down the market and pull us back into line with the 4-year cycle. So that's pretty well what we've seen happen is the market just really slow down and sort of bring itself back in line with the 4-year cycle, in my opinion. Now, of course, with that would be saying, right, that we are just about getting ready for a breakout around that November time period, and that could definitely happen. Obviously October, November, December do tend to be good times of the year for Bitcoin in general, especially with the election coming up. It does tend to spur on a little bit more, speculation, and the markets tend to push up a little bit higher during that time. So we'll wait and see, of course. But since our last video, despite all these bars, obviously August was a pretty crazy month in terms of price action, but ultimately the grand scheme of things, nothing has changed, right? We're still just in a pullback period. Price is just churning. Price really hasn't moved that much, right? In the past 6 months, if you'd have bought, pretty well all in these months here, if you bought in March, if you bought in April, May, June, July, August, September, there's a good chance, right, you're just at break even at the moment and nothing's really changed. But the emotion that we've been seeing in the market with the fear and the greed coming in at these different prices has been very extreme. So it's sort of what we want to see, flushing out all the weak hands, just really, really starting to form a bit more of a solid base. Now, do I think September is going to be the month where we start to push up? Unfortunately, I'd say it's unlikely. So here we are. We've got Bitcoin monthly returns based on a monthly chart, right? And as you guys can see, September is historically the worst month for Bitcoin. So whilst I'd like to say this could be the start of things, I mean, it could well be, depending on how you look at it, right? It's more than likely based on history that October, November, December, and then into the new year, will likely be far more bullish than what we are in now. And then if we take a look at this on a daily chart, this is a chart that we drew ages ago. I'd say we probably drew it, sometime back here, but it's very simple, right? It's just a trading wedge, right? And I'm not sure when we first put this in a video, but the point is it doesn't really matter. It wouldn't have mattered if you'd have drawn this wedge, back here, right? Straight away, or if you drew it here, or if you drew it here, whenever you drew this wedge on the page, the matter of fact is things haven't changed, right? In all these months, despite, if you have a look at these candles, right, the 5th of August. So if we have a look at just the last year, the 5th of August, as we said, if we can, or the 6th of August, I guess, was the most fearful, the day after the 5th. But you can see the 6th of August was, the most fearful day, apparently, in the last year that we've seen. And ultimately, when you have a look at it on a price chart, what changed from, was it really that much worse than May? Was it that much worse than, February last year? And the point is right, that price really hasn't changed that much in these in the last few months. But what we're seeing is fear just really start to pick up. People are a lot more fearful. As we said, if we go back to May wasn't that fearful. May was still quite greedy. If we go back to February, right, it was majorly greedy. And ultimately we're still at the same price. So what that means is good things, right? Obviously, if people are fearful during these times when nothing is happening, the market will sort of react to that well. Because ultimately what this churn period is that we've been talking about is a sort of just a final flush out before things really get heated. It's for those people that missed the lows. It's for the people that missed buying here. Maybe they bought around here, they saw this big candle and they thought, oh my God, I've got to get in. And then ultimately they end up just getting bored, sick of the markets. Things are getting worse and worse, it seems. When in reality, price hasn't moved that much. This is more than likely just sort of a final accumulation until we get into that green period. That's how I'm looking at this, at least. You can see big accumulation into the green. It's not a massive accumulation, but accumulation nonetheless, just before the big green. And same thing again, just a bit of accumulation into the green. What is there to say we're not in that period? Of course, there are invalidation points. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups that we do have to consider. I would say, realistically, you're looking around this sort of area here. If I just draw this quickly on the chart, a quick rectangle, I would say somewhere around this area is sort of where things start to get quite dicey. Of course, that's a larger area, but it's really that last accumulation zone that we've looked at. If we fall back into there, not particularly the end of the world. You can see that we bounced off it quite well just prior in August, but if we fall back into there just for a little bit and then bounce out, that's okay. As we said, we've probably, or chances are, September is not going to be the best month. But then afterwards, once we, have this monthly close, October, November, December could push us into that green. The green box is what we're calling it essentially, right? And if we have a look at those monthly returns, they are very, very significant. Now, as we look to Ethereum, this is the same thing again, right? We drew these lines on the chart a long time ago. We'll have a look back at the video where we drew them, and essentially nothing's really changed, right? It's pretty well been playing out how we said. Now, we drew these lines months ago, but let's break them down, right? What we were looking at was resistance overhead, massive resistance, right? Basically smack bang on $4,000. Now, for whatever reason, round numbers like this play on people's minds. They act as support and resistance for whatever reason. You explain it to me, I'm not really sure. It shouldn't matter, but it does. So what we're pretty well saying is, look, we're right at that point. This was when we were here on the second top, and we're pretty well saying, well, look, this has acted as resistance time and time again. So what is going to happen here? Look, we either break out of it and then we continue on our merry way. More than likely, though, we come back and we start to retest some lower levels. So we just sort of threw out some random numbers, right? You've got sort of like the middling range here. That would be the most bullish case if we could bottom along there. A decent case would be if we came back down towards the lows and sort of held that support, or worst case scenario, we come back down and we test this trend line. And what did we do? Well, we came back and tested the trend line, right? So let's go back and take a look at that video where we drew these lines, just so you get an idea of the thought process, I guess, behind them. I'm not sure exactly, but it's just, a bit of a matter of fact that, round numbers act as support and resistance as key barriers, one way or the other. And what we've seen in the past is that 4,000, not quite here, but you can see that little bit of congestion in that area. And then obviously again, $4,000, and once again, $4,000, pretty well coming up, not quite touching exactly, but getting very close. So the concern is that yes, Ethereum are clearly quite strong, but until we actually break out above this position, and if we can, same thing again, pretty well just consolidate above and then shoot off, it is in a little bit of a waiting stage. If we come back down, if we can form a higher low, that's perfectly fine, and then go from there. Otherwise, if we come back down, break down further, then looking at these lows, and then we're pretty well looking at our trend line, even lower than that. So I don't think it should come back down to the trend line, but if it were to, please, same thing again, not the end of the world necessarily. If it comes back around that 50% level, not ideal, obviously, for our portfolios, but not the end of the world. So, I don't think it should come to that at this point in time. And what do you know, it did come to that point in time. Of course, we can't get every call right, but as we pretty well said, right, like it was a possibility all the way up here that we did come back down and test this trend line, and that was exactly what ended up playing out. And as we said, that 50% level, this trend line, they're all acting as key points of support. So ideally, we really want to hold this level over the coming month until Bitcoin can start to recover. If we do sort of break down below, as you can see, like, the trend line is just a random line I've drawn on the chart. At the end of the day, everyone will have their own slightly different one. You can see we slightly broke below the trend line. Oh well, as long as we don't get major closes below, I don't think that would be a major issue. And ultimately, I think Ethereum is still in a pretty good spot, especially whilst Bitcoin, as we said, sort of gears up towards the later end of the year. It's not ideal for our portfolios. Obviously, yes, it would be nice just to be able to hover around. The chart looks a lot better in the weekly. I didn't realize that when I originally drew those lines, it was in the weekly, so it does look a lot smarter on this chart here. But you can see pretty well exactly what we were talking about, right? We come back down, test the trend line as the worst case scenario. Not ideal, didn't see it happening, to be honest. I thought, we'd probably just hold up a little bit higher and gear up, a bit earlier in the year, because as we said, we are coming up to that sort of final stage here. So maybe Ethereum lags Bitcoin a little bit in this cycle, at least initially, just based on, the price action. Ethereum is in a weaker spot than Bitcoin, but so be it. We've found some support on that trend line, clear resistance. And we'll just see how we hold up from here. And if it does break down lower, probably ringing some warning bells that potentially Ethereum is not the best investment at this point in time. Even if it goes up in dollar value from that point, we do have to also consider our opportunity cost with things like Bitcoin dominance. Now moving on to Crow. Crow has had a actually kind of crazy month, just in the sense that we've gone up, we've gone down. There's been a lot of price action, but ultimately not a lot of price action, right? A lot of fear, a lot of greed, and a whole lot of nothing all at the same time. So that's pretty well what we've been talking about with Bitcoin. But the good thing about Crow is it is losing a lot of its what's the word? It's losing a lot of its volatility. I got there in the end. You can see it's sort of just slowly dying out a little bit, which isn't, I know it doesn't sound good that the crypto is dying out. This is sort of what we want to see, right? We want to see some consolidation, around these lows, around the low that we've got here. We are sort of starting to see price start to slow down. So if we can hold that swing low, what month is that from? The January monthly swing low, that would be absolutely ideal, and we're still in a pretty bullish position, as we've been talking about for a long time with CRO. We believe that this is a Wyckoff accumulation, and since we've obviously seen the breakout, now we just really want to hold above the breakout to sort of confirm it going into the future, and then hopefully, if all things go as we believe, we stay above that Wyckoff accumulation point, and once the bull market starts to pick up, Crow will pick up following suit, essentially. Now, Solana's actually been a pretty bullish cryptocurrency. We've seen Crow have a significant pullback. We've seen Ethereum have quite a significant pullback. We've even seen Bitcoin have a somewhat significant pullback, and Solana is actually holding up very strong. Now, as you guys can see, this is the major 50% we're talking about, right? This high all the way down to this low, which is a very important. Of course, it doesn't look like 50% because we're on logarithmic, but if we pull it out like that, there we go, we can see it is smack bang in the center. We have been able to hold the major 50% level. Now if that continues until Bitcoin eventually breaks out and the bull market continues, that puts Sol in a huge, I can't exaggerate, bullish position. This is bullish structure 101, right? We're above a major 50% level. We come back down, we consolidate. And if we even have a look, I'll pull it up quickly. If we have a look at Solana versus Bitcoin, so not only is Solana holding up quite well in terms of US dollar, it's actually, pretty well trending up against Bitcoin, right? You can see that is a very clear uptrend. It looks like it is pretty well imminently going to break out of these all-time highs. That's sort of what it's looking like, in my opinion, that this bull market will be a massive Solana hit. Now, of course, never say never, it might not be. Maybe Solana absolutely burns this cycle, but it is looking very bullish, in my opinion. We've been looking at Solana, admittedly a little bit late, but we were talking about it around this $80 range as a potential buy-in spot, which it was very temporarily, but we got in, or at least I know I got in around that price in here, and since then we're obviously not massively in profits. Had we bought at the lows, but we're in profit, and just based on this chart, right, it looks like it's gearing up for a very big bull market for Solana. Now, one token that we did get wrong was Trust Wallet, in my opinion. I was looking at this as being pretty bullish, right? Obviously, higher lows, higher highs, pretty well. And of course, this was always a concern, but we were really looking at this and saying, basically, if we can't stay above the 50% and hold this trend line, as essentially at some point in time, this is going to make a turn for the worst. And pretty well, what do we see here, right? It has, broken down the trend line. Yes, we're still holding this low that we were looking at. I think this is the absolute last point of support for Trust Wallet. But, you can see here that, pretty well come up, retest. If we break this down to a daily, I think it might show it a little bit better. It does, you see break down, bounce off the lows here, find some support, look to push up higher, and rejected at the trend line. So pretty clear cut that this token isn't looking the best at this point in time. Same thing again, never say never, maybe things make a turn for the better, but at this point in time, Trust Wallet not looking good. Yes, we did have it teed up as a potential, just based on this, higher highs, higher low structure, that, if this trend line had have held and, pushed up above, then potentially, it was a great opportunity to make a lot of money, obviously, but at this point in time, potentially not. Anyways, guys, that will pretty well do it. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully this lets you guys know where I'm up to with my thesis. And if you did enjoy, if you found this information helpful, do feel free to subscribe, like, comment any questions you may have down below. As we said, guys, just a quick recap, we are still in, in our opinion, essentially just this accumulation phase. This is the weekly chart. We'll get it back to the monthly. We are just in this accumulation phase. We've been saying for a while now it could take 6, to 8 months is what we were pretty well looking at, and that's where we're up to now. So in our opinion, breakout probably going to happen at some point. Obviously September. Will it be September? Potentially not. September's never really been a good month, but I think after September, we will start to look more bullish. And if we don't start to look more bullish after that, we'll wait and see what the chart says, right? But that's sort of the thesis at this point in time. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.